Welcome back. Today, we're diving into a 2011 film that blends biography, comedy, and drama, The Untouchables. Spoilers ahead, so tread carefully. One quiet night in Paris, Driss is behind the wheel, chauffeuring his employer Philippe through the city. As the traffic crawl drags on, boredom takes over, and Driss decides to throw caution to the wind. Speeding through the streets, weaving between cars, and completely ignoring traffic signs. This reckless driving quickly attracts the attention of the police, and Driss boldly wagers €100 that he can shake them off. But after speeding under a bridge, the officers ambush them from both sides. Undeterred, Driss raises the stakes, betting €200 this time that he can secure an escort. When the cops force him out of the car, he springs into action, pretending to be outraged and insisting that Philippe can't move and that he's rushing him to the hospital. The officers are convinced when they spot the wheelchair in the truck and seeing Philippe convulse. Another act, they treat it as an emergency. In the end, the cops overlook Driss' traffic violations and offer to escort them to the hospital. Victorious, Driss cranks up September by Earth, Wind and Fire to celebrate, and once they arrive and the police leave, he shares a smoke with Philippe, savoring their little triumph. Driss assures Philippe that he's got everything under control and drives them away just in time, before the hospital staff can catch up. Their unusual friendship, however, had started months earlier. Philippe and his assistant Magali are conducting interviews to find a new caretaker, but so far, every candidate gives either awkward or painfully generic answers. Then, out of nowhere, Driss barges in, ignoring the queue and interview protocol, just to grab some papers that would confirm he won't be hired, so he can claim unemployment benefits. He's blunt, cheeky, and even flirts with Magali, but Philippe can't help but be entertained. Amused, he tells Driss to come back the next day to get the signed papers. Driss returns to his modest neighborhood home and tries to sneak in a bath, only to be constantly interrupted by his mischievous younger siblings. He barely manages to finish, thanks to the help of his older, more responsible sister Mina. While waiting for their mother to come home, he peers out the window and spots his brother Adama stepping out of a suspicious-looking car. When Adama walks into the apartment, he casually claims he's just been at school, grabs his bag, and heads back out, raising Driss' suspicions even further. That evening, their mother finally arrives, and Driss hands her a stolen Fabergé egg, claiming he's been away on vacation. She is far from pleased. After 6 months of his unexplained absence, his sudden return feels less like a reunion and more like he's treating their home as a hotel. Fed up with all his lies and having other children to care for, his mother finally kicks Driss out, warning him not to return. That night, he hangs out in the neighborhood, enjoying a smoke and some snacks with friends. The next day, Driss heads back to Philippe's house to collect his papers and is greeted by the housekeeper Yvonne. She gives him a tour of the grand estate, explaining Philippe's daily routine and showing him the room he'll call his own, with a private bathroom. Driss can't help sneaking a glance at the luxurious bathtub before he's ushered to see Philippe. Instead of just handing over the signed papers, Philippe surprises him with a job offer. Driss agrees to a 1-month trial, while Philippe bets he won't last 2 weeks. After moving his things into his new room, Driss begins learning the ropes of caring for Philippe, setting the stage for an unforgettable and unlikely partnership. Driss has a steep learning curve. He must figure out how to keep Philippe's legs active, maneuver him into the wheelchair, assist with showers, and help him change clothes. Awkward moments abound, like putting on high stockings or even cleaning Philippe after he uses the bathroom. No matter how much Driss grumbles or insists he won't handle these tasks, he ultimately accepts them as part of the job. Later that evening, while enjoying a snack on the roof, he's interrupted by Philippe's daughter Elisa and her boyfriend Bastien, who are hunting for a private spot to make out. Driss swiftly kicks them out after refusing to share his beer. Despite a few early blunders, like handing Philippe the phone instead of placing it to his ear, or forgetting the baby monitor during bath time, Driss quickly adapts to the daily routine, learning the ins and outs of caring for Philippe with surprising ease. Driss also learns to organize Philippe's mail into different folders. Most letters he opens, but a set of private ones is strictly off-limits. When he stumbles upon a flyer advertising female escorts, he can't resist creating a special file for them instead of tossing it in the trash like Philippe instructed. But it's not all work in this new life. Driss makes sure to enjoy himself. He keeps attempting to charm Magali, with little success, and occasionally calls on escorts for some late-night fun. One morning, Yvonne barges into his room to scold him for being late, and spots some dangerous-looking weapons in his bag. She says nothing for now. Today, Driss' task is to chauffeur Philippe, but he refuses to treat him like cargo by loading him into the back of a van. Instead, he opts for one of the sleek, rarely used luxury cars. At first, Philippe doubts the idea, insisting they should be practical, but his excitement quickly grows at the thought of a faster, far more thrilling ride. Though Yvonne still frowns in disapproval. As they try to exit the building, a neighbor has parked right in front of the entrance, ignoring the no parking sign. Without hesitation, Driss storms over, grabs the man by the shirt, and threatens him until he moves the car. Philippe can't help but admire his boldness, while Yvonne, predictably, looks on with disapproval once again. The duo heads to a museum, where Philippe plans to purchase a piece of art that Driss can't understand. After all, to him it's just a red blotch on the canvas, hardly worth the price. Later, Philippe meets a relative who warns him that everyone is concerned about Driss, given his tendency for violence, and that he has a criminal record. Philippe, however, shrugs it off. He values Driss for his honesty, his refusal to pity him, and his ability to joke freely. After yet another failed attempt at charming Magali, Driss joins Yvonne for dinner in the kitchen while listening to Philippe dictate a letter to Magali. Claiming privacy, Yvonne switches off the baby monitor and fills him in. Philippe has a pen pal, a woman named Eleanor. The very letters Driss was forbidden to open. Although Philippe has never met Eleanor in person, their connection exists entirely through letters. Meanwhile, Driss can't resist teasing Yvonne about the lingering glances from the gardener before heading to bed. His sleep is interrupted by strange noises coming from the baby monitor. Philippe is struggling to breathe. Unable to ignore him, Driss rushes to his side, gently guiding him through the attack with soothing words and a damp cloth to cool his face. Philippe drifts off, only to wake moments later, gasping for air. This time, Driss acts without hesitation. He wheels Philippe out, wraps him in blankets, and takes him for a calming nighttime stroll along the river. It's the first time in years that Philippe has seen Paris at night, and the calm of the city seems to relax him. He opens up to Driss, explaining that his medication can only do so much and that he sometimes suffers from phantom pain. When a group of girls walks by, Philippe admits that, because of his condition, he can't physically pleasure a woman, but he still finds small joys, like having his ears massaged, which are unusually sensitive. As the phantom pain threatens to flare up again, Driss offers Philippe one of his joints. Philippe is hesitant at first, but soon he's completely captivated by the experience. Later, they head to a restaurant, joking and laughing over a shared meal, and Philippe begins to reveal more of his life story. He met his wife when they were students, and shortly after their marriage, she endured 5 miscarriages before being diagnosed with an incurable, terminal illness. That's when Elisa joined their family. Philippe has always been drawn to competitions, extreme sports, and the thrill of speed, and paragliding gave him all of that. It was during one daring paragliding session that bad weather caused a crash, fracturing his vertebrae. Yet, he insists that his true handicap isn't the wheelchair. It's living without his wife. After sharing a few more laughs, Philippe glances at the calendar and realizes that Driss has completed his 1-month trial. He's officially part of the team. But first, there's one task he must tackle: returning the Faberge egg he had taken. It was a cherished gift from Philippe's wife, who had given him one every year. There are exactly 25 eggs, each representing a year of their life together. The next day, Driss catches up with Mina as she's leaving school. She's a little upset. He's barely answered her messages, only contacting her about the missing Faberge egg. She also warns him that the police have been calling their home. Later, he visits Adama, who admits he was caught with 30 grams of drugs. Driss tries to persuade him to grab lunch, but Adama refuses, hopping instead into that same shady car from before. Back at Philippe's, Driss is finally allowed to sit in while Philippe dictates a letter to Eleanor through Magali. He finds the flowery language tedious, wishing Philippe would just be straightforward. He's also astonished to learn that this correspondence has been going on for 6 months, and that they've never even exchanged photographs. When Driss spots Eleanor's phone number on one of the letters, he takes it as a sign and calls her, nudging Philippe to finally speak to her outside the confines of their written correspondence. Their conversation goes so smoothly that Philippe ends up talking to her on the phone constantly, even just before he and Driss head to the opera, where Driss can't resist laughing and joking about the extravagant costumes. The next day, Driss persuades Philippe to exchange photos with Eleanor, selecting one that shows him in his wheelchair. Later, while Philippe is painting, Elisa bursts into the room asking for cigarettes, teasing him for attempting to be artistic. Frustrated, he kicks her out and goes to check on Philippe, only to find him asking Yvonne to swap the chosen photo for one of him before he became quadriplegic. Yvonne slips the picture into the escort file just as Driss bursts in, complaining about Elisa and insisting that Philippe needs to discipline her. A sentiment Yvonne wholeheartedly supports. Philippe agrees to have a word with his daughter, but is mostly taken aback when Driss casually mentions that he's been painting. Days pass, and the bond between Philippe and Driss grows stronger. Driss takes him out to play in the snow, and even brings him along on his runs. Philippe buys him his first suit and scolds his daughter, with Driss listening in through the baby monitor. When Driss completes his first painting, he shows it to Magali, only to be met with a slap when he tries to kiss her. Philippe, however, is impressed by the artwork and promises he'll try to sell it. The two of them share countless adventures, from zipping around in faster cars and smoking joints to even hiring escorts together. But when Philippe's birthday rolls around, he's hardly enthusiastic. Every year, he pretends to be surprised by the party and begrudgingly meets relatives who only show up to check if he's still alive. Philippe declares it'll be rather dull. As the guests enjoy some live classical music, Driss goes searching for Elisa, who is sobbing in her room after taking some of Yvonne's pills. Thankfully, nothing fatal happens. She explains that she's upset because Bastien broke up with her and insulted her, calling her a tart. Elisa asks Driss to confront him on her behalf, and true to form, he agrees, but only for a price. Philippe proudly shows Driss painting to a relative and manages to sell it for an impressive 11,000 euros. Driss returns to the dining room and chats with Yvonne, who lets slip that Magali is dating someone named Fred. But their relationship is rocky, giving Driss a flicker of hope. As the party winds down, Philippe insists that Driss listen to some of the most iconic pieces in classical music history. True to form, Driss can only respond with jokes. Once the band finishes, he pulls out his iPod, blasts Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind and Fire, and starts dancing with wild abandon in the middle of the floor, stealing everyone's attention. Driss proves to be an incredible dancer, even coaxing the rest of the party guests to join him on the floor, a sight that Philippe watches with delight. Later, as he helps Philippe get ready for bed, Driss sneaks a peek at Eleanor's latest letter. She's included a photo revealing her striking looks, and suggests they meet next week when she's in Paris. When the day of the date arrives, Yvonne and Driss go through countless outfits until they find the perfect one for Philippe. Since Yvonne will accompany him, Driss takes the day off to pay Bastien a visit. He intimidates the boy until he agrees to apologize to Elisa, bring her croissants every day, and even style her hair properly. Later, Driss stops by his mother's workplace, though only to watch her from a distance. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Yvonne and Philippe wait patiently for Eleanor, who is running very late. After an hour passes, Philippe loses his patience, calls Driss to whisk him away, and leaves, completely unaware that Eleanor has just arrived. That same night, Philippe takes Driss aboard his private plane, handing him the money he earned from selling the painting, filling Driss with uncontainable joy. The next morning, they arrive in the countryside, and Philippe insists on going paragliding, dragging a reluctant Driss along. Though initially terrified, Driss soon finds himself exhilarated, discovering he actually enjoys the thrilling experience. When they return home, Adama is waiting for Driss and immediately gets scolded when Driss notices the scars on his face. Still, Adama refuses to explain what's going on in his life. So Driss has him wait in his room while he calls Mina to reassure her and then goes to put Philippe to bed. But Philippe isn't ready to sleep just yet. After showing Driss one of his paintings, Philippe gently steers the conversation toward family. At first, Driss hesitates, but he eventually opens up. He reveals that Adama isn't technically his brother, and that the people he calls parents are actually his aunt and uncle. They brought him from Senegal when he was 8 because they couldn't have children. His real name is Bakary Baysari, but since other kids already had that name, they started calling him Idris, and that eventually became Driss. One day, Driss' aunt miraculously became pregnant, and after his uncle passed away, there were other men in her life, and more children joined the family. In a conversation reminiscent of how Driss had spoken about Elisa, Philippe points out that Adama needs guidance. Realizing he can't spend his entire life caring for an old man, Philippe fires Driss so he can be with his family. The next morning, after Bastien delivers his daily croissant with a tidier hairstyle, Driss packs his bags and prepares to leave. Magali comes by to say goodbye, and when Driss tries one last flirtatious attempt, she introduces him to her partner, Fred, short for Frederic. It turns out Magali isn't interested in men, and Driss immediately gives up, accepting the situation with a wry smile. As he heads out, Driss returns the baby monitor to Yvonne, teasing her for tricking him about Magali just to mess with him. In response, she hands over the escort file he had started, but to his disappointment, the picture he had chosen is tucked inside. Driss tosses the file but keeps the photo for himself. Once outside, he encounters a car blocking the entrance again. Even though he no longer works there, he insists the driver move it. When Adama questions his behavior, Driss simply replies that it's a matter of principle. A few hours later, the two brothers go to pick up their mother from the station. Meanwhile, back at Philippe's house, he sits down for his first dinner with his new caretaker, stuffy and unimaginative, and promptly decides to leave the meal untouched. With Yvonne out on a date with the gardener, there's no one around to scold him. In the days that follow, Driss drifts back into his old life, hanging out with his friends and confronting the guys from the suspicious car, warning them to leave Adama alone. When he lands an interview for a job he's underqualified for, he impresses the employer by calling himself pragmatic and showcasing all the art knowledge he picked up while working for Philippe. This lands him a position as a driver. Meanwhile, Philippe grows increasingly irritated with his new caretaker, remaining perpetually in a foul mood. One night, he refuses help for his phantom pain, prompting Yvonne to call Driss. And just like that, they find themselves back in the chaos of the beginning, racing through the streets with the cops on their tail, only to end up being escorted to the hospital. After that little adventure, Driss drives Philippe to the coast, and the calming sight of the sea soothes him. Later, Driss tends to Philippe's overgrown beard before taking him to a restaurant for lunch. But he doesn't stay long, as someone else will be keeping Philippe company that day. Before leaving, Driss wishes him luck and returns the treasured Faberge egg. Philippe begins to worry about being alone, until he sees his date, Eleanor, who is thrilled to see him and doesn't mind the wheelchair at all. In real life, Count Philippe Pozo di Borgo now resides in Morocco, has remarried, and has two daughters. The real Driss, whose full name is Abdul Yasmin Sellu, runs his own company and is married with 3 children. The two men remain incredibly close friends to this day.